Hello and welcome to today's Savings Network webinar, Responding to Clients' Now Needs. We'll give everybody a minute or two to join, and then we'll get started. Hello and welcome to today's Savings Network webinar, Responding to Clients' Now Needs. My name is Ada Yepes, and I'm a Senior Program Associate with the Savings and Financial Capability team. Thank you for joining today's webinar. This is the first in a series of 3 webinars covering the now, soon, and later savings model. Like many of you, Prosperity Now staff are fully remote, so bear with us as we experience any technical difficulties. Getting the most out of today's call. We invite you to join from a quiet space, maybe grab a coffee or a snack and settle in. Engage, send us your questions and comments as you listen. Tweet with us on Twitter using the hashtag ProsperityNow, and reflect on ways to apply what you learned today to your own work. Prosperity Now's mission is to ensure everyone in our country has a clear path to financial stability, wealth, and prosperity. This webinar is being recorded and will be mailed to all registrants and available within 1 week on our website. All webinar attendees are muted to ensure sound quality. You can ask a question or share your thoughts anytime by typing into the text box of your GoToWebinar control panel. We're so excited to have you all joining us today, and we'd like to begin with a word from our sponsor. Please welcome Paula D'Ambrosa from the Prudential Foundation.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Paula D'Ambrosa from Prudential Financial. I am very excited to introduce the first Prosperity Now Savings Network webinar of 2021. This webinar comes at a very critical time for savings as we grapple with the economic fallout of the COVID-19 crisis and look to support people in building financial stability and security as we hopefully emerge from this crisis in 2021. Throughout this webinar series, Prosperity Now will explore how we can support low to moderate income households with short, medium, and long-term savings goals and provide them with the flexibility they need to navigate a complicated financial landscape. So very excited for today's presentation, and I now like to turn it over to Parker Cohen.
Hi, thank you so much, Paula, for those remarks and for sponsoring today's call. Hi, everyone. My name is Parker Cohen. I'm the director of the Savings and Financial Capability team at Prosperity Now. And thank you all so much for taking time out to join us for this discussion. And again, thank you to Prudential Financial for sponsoring this work. This webinar, as Paula mentioned, is the first in our series exploring how to support households around savings in 2021. As we grapple with multiple intersecting crises that are impacting both household finances and how financial services are designed and delivered. Today, we'll be focusing on supporting households' now needs, savings needs, and exploring how to ensure that people have the resources they need to meet day-to-day expenses in a rapidly changing environment. We'll discuss this, of course, in the context of the COVID-19 pandemic, where so many households have had different financial experiences depending on the jobs they've held, their immigration status, their ability to access government aid and supports, and other issues that have driven economic outcomes at the household level. Now, looking at our agenda, we're starting now, of course, with introductions and framing. We'll then provide an overview of the all-in-one savings model and our recently released research that explores the savings needs and interests of low to moderate income consumers, and what this tells us about savings needs during this pandemic and this time of economic crisis. Then we'll hear from a fantastic panel of speakers on their savings work, responding to clients' emergency savings needs, and how they've adapted their service delivery models in light of the pandemic. We'll then open it up to questions from the audience, and so please feel free to submit any questions via the Q&A box that Laura mentioned earlier, and then we'll discuss next steps and close out. So on the next slide, we have, again, this is myself, Parker Cohen, my co-host, Laura Yepes, who spoke earlier, will be speaking again in a moment. Laura is a senior program associate on the Savings and Financial Capability team here at Prosperity Now, and we're really excited to host you today. We're joined by three fantastic speakers for our panel conversation. On the next slide, the first is Winona Nava, the president and CEO of Guadalupe Credit Union. The second is Tony Cornialdi, the community outreach director at Fund My Future. And last but certainly not least, Ann Leland Clark, the financial capability and learning director at Prepare and Prosper. These are three expert practitioners who have so much to share and discuss and teach us about meeting clients' emergency savings and now needs. So on the next slide, we're going to dive in and talk a little bit about how Prosperity Now looks at emergency savings within this continuum of broader savings needs. So on the following slide, thank you, we have our now, soon, and later framework. So as we've noted already, as we enter 2021, Americans' financial lives are really more complex than ever. And we're going to continue to frame our 2021 Savings Network activities around providing financial products and programs that meet low to moderate income households where they are in their financial lives and allow them flexibility to meet their rapidly changing needs and savings goals, whatever they may be. Many of you may be familiar with our now, soon, and later framework that helps us think about the spectrum of savings needs and how they overlap with each other. In this framework, having emergency savings and the ability to meet day-to-day needs during volatile times is absolutely critical. And having the ability to meet now needs without, in particular, having to sacrifice future security or taking out costly debt is essential to having financial stability and building towards greater financial security. So today we'll be focusing on how these now needs are being met in this moment, and we'll really dive into that in our panel discussion. So on the next slide, we're going to take a little step back and highlight some of the research we've conducted over the last couple of years that helps us understand the moment we find ourselves in. So before this crisis started, we conducted a 6-part landscape analysis series to understand the reasons for the savings crisis in America, the products and programs that are available to low to moderate income households to support their savings, the features that those products use to enable savings, the experience that consumers have when engaging with these products and programs, and lastly, how they are delivered to users of the financial programs. So please visit our site to learn more about to read this series of analysis and really see how they underscore the need for flexible, holistic solutions that better reflect the complexity of people's financial lives and help them navigate the many barriers that make it challenging to save. On the next slide, I start a little discussion about consumer research that we conducted with 62 people in 4 cities. So we conducted in-depth qualitative interviews with 62 low to moderate income individuals in these 4 cities to understand if they would be interested in a new type of savings solution, one that was a quote, all-in-one savings solution where different features, a constellation of product features would support them in being able to save for now, soon, and later savings needs concurrently. So the ability to save for emergency savings, intermediate savings goals, such as saving up for a vacation, or possibly a little longer term, like a down payment for a house, then ultimately retirement, children's college savings, etc. Having all of these available in one experience. So on the next slide, you can see what the product features that we talked to these interviewees about. So these features cross the continuum of savings that we talked before. Access to affordable emergency credit, which is not a savings feature in and of itself, but it enables savings in the longer term by preventing taking out costly debt. Also, the ability to have access to free checking, incentives and rewards for savings, extra support from the savings products, such as from financial coaches, and also retirement or other longer term savings, like I mentioned a minute ago, a children's savings account. So importantly, users will be able to organize different savings goals into buckets to work towards distinct short and intermediate savings goals. And on the next slide, you'll see our findings, which have a lot of implications for how we address savings in the pandemic and hopefully soon enough in the post-pandemic environment. So what we found is low to moderate income individuals are saving actively, but are struggling to get ahead. And this reinforces a lot of prior research that we've seen, that many barriers, including too little income, volatility in income and expenses, and also debt, make it really challenging to make both the act of saving as well as building savings over time really challenging. Consumers were interested very much in the all-in-one savings concept we just described, which would enable them to save for different goals with different time horizons concurrently. So now, soon, and later at the same time. And so interviewees were drawn to many aspects of the concept, including the savings packages, which featured buckets with preset goals that were customizable and allowing individuals to save for different purposes and track that savings within a single experience. We also found that individuals are seeking more guidance than they're currently receiving from savings solutions. Financial coaching being offered within this hypothetical product was very, drew a lot of interest from those we interviewed. And people are also really interested in customized tips and reminders to support those that were struggling to save or struggling to build savings. The bottom line is folks were seeking higher touch customer service to navigate the use of savings products and programs. Further, incentives such as rewards or interest on the savings were very popular, unsurprisingly, and indicate that the careful application, the correct application, I should say, of incentives within savings solutions can really boost low to moderate income individuals' savings. And finally, we found that people were concerned about the security of their savings, particularly fears of hidden fees, the safety of storing money in a particular account, security of online accounts, and others really permeated the conversations. And people wanted a lot of reassurance, justifiably, about the security of their savings. So what does this mean on the next slide for emergency savings? So our research underscores in some ways what we already knew, which is emergency savings is critical to maintaining stability. And people, the low to moderate income individuals we interviewed were continually saving, but having to draw down that savings as well. So their savings was not accumulating over time, but still the presence of that emergency savings was critical to them keeping afloat. Emergency savings is also really important to secure assets. It helps people stay at homes, prevent borrowing against other goals, such as early withdrawals from retirement, if they had retirement accounts. That came up quite a bit. Also underscored the need to link short and longer term savings and programs for the reason in part that I just stated, that having sufficient short-term savings is insurance against longer-term assets and prevents the drawing down of those assets or the loss of those assets in some cases. Also, the incentivizing savings is critical for supporting LMI households. We know that higher wealth households have existing incentives through the tax code, workplace retirement programs that are commonly offered, and other avenues. And our research really underscored that that unsurprisingly, low to moderate income households were very responsive to incentives for savings as well. And on the next two slides, before I turn it over to Laura, I want to bring it back to the pandemic a little bit and talk about, so we did this research prior to the pandemic, and we saw that people were saving but struggling to get ahead. And also, they needed more flexibility from their savings products and programs. And I think the folks we interviewed and what we're seeing from so many clients of our partners across the country is that they were placed in a very vulnerable position before the pandemic and the economic crisis. And we know the importance of having emergency savings. And with so many barriers that made it hard to build that savings, far too many households were in a bad position heading into the pandemic. These households were predominantly low wealth, had low wage jobs, were disproportionately racial and ethnic minorities, immigrants, particularly undocumented immigrants and women. And we have an excellent report that Laura just linked to in the chat that details the unequal impact of COVID. And on the next slide, we have the survey we conducted in the middle of the year last year to explore how these vulnerable households were navigating the financial impact of COVID-19. And we found that nearly 40% of lower income households feel worse off financially as a result of the pandemic. And, of course, that tragically makes sense. And we were seeing in our interviews and analysis that folks were saving, were trying to get ahead, but struggling to do so in, quote unquote, good economic times with a strong economy. And what we saw was that it was a mirage for so many, and the pandemic left them very vulnerable. Almost half the households surveyed were unable to fully cover at least one basic expense. And lower income households use economic impact payments, existing savings, as well as also skipping bill payments and filing and their tax refund to get by during difficult times. And we also found that Latino and Black households and those in the lowest income brackets were most likely to turn to credit products that may increase their economic vulnerability, such as high interest credit cards or payday loans. So, this is a lot of information, but I think what I really want to underscore is that, where this leaves us in regards to meeting savings needs is that, households are in vastly different places, and there's no one size fits all solution. Many households have been thrown into financial crisis, as you see, on this slide, and this is a result of the the vulnerability that people like those we interviewed around savings were facing due to lower inconsistent wages or debt, et cetera. And some households have been able to tread water and put a little away for savings, potentially as a result of the economic impact payment or expanded unemployment insurance if they were able to access that. And so, people are in very different places right now. And so in our conversation today, we're going to talk about how we approach supporting low to moderate income households around savings in such a complicated environment, and how we can help households build stability and security as we move forward. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Laura to conduct some polls and get us started with our conversation.
Thank you, Parker. Once again, my name is Laura Yepes. I'm a senior program associate with the Savings and Financial Capability team. So I want to really thank Parker for grounding us in what's happening right now on the ground, and that's why we're about to have this panel discussion. But before we begin our panel discussion, we're going to launch a few polls to hear more from the audience. Our first poll is, what supports our clients asking for? Emergency cash assistance, building savings, help accessing benefits, debt prevention, eviction prevention, or litigation. We're going to give it a second or two while the responses are coming in. And we'll be closing the poll in 3, 2, 1. Okay, so as we can see, a lot of people are asking for emergency cash assistance or help accessing benefits and eviction prevention. Some are still asking for building savings, and then other people are focused on debt prevention. Overall, this tells us that people are still needing immediate access to now needs. And we'll go to our second poll. How have your savings programs shifted over the last year? No changes in how we provide savings programs. We shifted savings programs to also meet immediate needs. Pause services like match savings, which require income, did not provide any savings program in the past, so it's not applicable. If there's others, please tell us in the chat box. And we'll leave this open for a little bit while we get these answers in. And we'll be closing the poll in 3, 2, 1. Let's see. No changes in how we provide savings programs seems to be the highest. Some people shifted their savings program to meet immediate needs. A very small percentage have paused their match savings program, and then a couple of you did not provide savings programs in the past. Some other ones, let's see if anybody has typed in the chat. I don't see anything, but if you want to tell us what other means, please feel free to put it in the chat. For now, let's move on to our panel discussion. Before we begin, just some keynotes about the group discussion. Everybody is muted to ensure sound quality, so share your comments and ask questions by typing them in the question panel /text box. Thank you. I'd like to welcome our speakers today. We're so excited to have 3 wonderful speakers who are just phenomenal and do so much across the ground. First, we have Winona who is the president and CEO of the Guadalupe Credit Union. The Guadalupe Credit Union has grown from 10 million to 215 million with over 22,000 members under her leadership. Since 2000, their focus has been on serving the unbanked and underserved populations by providing financial empowerment in northern New Mexico. Next, we have Tony Coronaldi, the Director of Community and Partner Engagement for Fund My Future, who has worked for Propel Charter Schools since 2008. As a program manager, she oversaw the countywide expansion of Fund My Future while continuing to manage Fund My Future at 13 Propel Charter Schools. In 2020, the program expanded again, making this unique savings opportunity available to all the families in the state of Pennsylvania. And last but certainly not least, we have Ann Leland Clark, the Financial Capability and Learning Director with Prepare and Prosper. In her nearly 10-year tenure, she's built a nationally recognized tax time savings campaign, volunteer-based financial coaching program, and the Financial Access and Reach Fair Inclusion Initiative. Thank you guys for joining us today. We're so excited to hear from you all. And let's get started with our questions. For our first question, each of you represents a different type of organization serving alumni communities. What are the now needs of your community, and how is your organization meeting them? Let's start off with Anne.
Thank you, Laura and Prosperity Now folks, for having us here, and my fellow panelists. I feel honored to be presenting with you. So we at Prepare and Prosper, we offer free tax, financial inclusion, and financial coaching programs in the Twin Cities. And what this looks like is we serve about, in a normal year, anywhere from 12 to 13,000 a year, individuals across the Twin Cities and across Minnesota. And across these programs, we're serving a spectrum of folks, unsurprisingly. Well, sort of the commonality is like low, moderate income. Folks are on a spectrum around that now, soon, and later continuum we just discussed. With so many, like similar to the research that you found with the 62 individuals at Prosperity Now, many experiencing crises like job loss, furloughs, others who are essential workers with the added stress of the threat of COVID at work, whereas others are working from home and receive boosts from those stimulus payments and temporary increases in unemployment. So again, that whole spectrum. Given this diversity and those quote unquote now needs, from what looks like falling off financial cliffs to others who are building and rebuilding emergency savings cushions, we've done a better job at promoting and designing and promoting that broader financial continuum of care that goes beyond savings, that includes financial counseling referrals for those with debt management issues, financial coaching. We have our own program for those living within new financial constraints in a budget. And then referrals to pro bono financial planning for those who have specific questions regarding those retirement savings changes and withdrawals. So really, for us, it's been about designing a broader financial continuum of care for folks along that financial continuum in their changing now needs. In our financial coaching program, which is where we have the strongest relationships, unsurprisingly, a lot of folks come once a year for tax time, but in coaching, it's a 6 to 12 month or longer engagement. COVID brought with it a lot of revised or reframed financial goals. Whereas some customers formerly were building savings to buy a house, a car, start a small business, those goals have changed to applying for unemployment insurance or finding a job training program to skill up, like in side hustles, like food delivery, for example, or retraining using online courses. And others who are maxing out their credit cards and making those hard decisions to default on those debt management plans they may have been on. So in many ways, how we're meeting folks is being there to listen, to hold space, to be a sounding board and partner in a way that sort of meets those changing financial realities.
Awesome. Thank you, Anne. And thank you for sharing about the continuum that you serve and how diverse your population is, from really needing to alleviate debt, finding new jobs, to being able to save. Next, we'll move on to Tony. Tony, what are the now needs of your community, and how is your organization meeting them?
All right. Thank you, Laura. So first of all, I want to say that I too am so delighted to be here with my Prosperity Now colleagues and excited to bring forth this information about Fund My Future. And in answering your question about the now needs for Fund My Future, I'd like to give a brief description of the program itself. Fund My Future is a children's savings program where we encourage and motivate families to save for their child's future, or a child. A grandparent or an extended family member can also save for a child with as little as $1 a month, and be eligible for a chance to win cash prizes ranging from $50 to $1,000 every month. And we've been around since 2013. And as of today, we have over 8,000 adults enrolled in the program, and some adult has one child and some have more than one child. So we're really excited about that. And our now needs for our families is to continue to encourage the families to save for their child or grandchild's future. And what that would look like is continue to reach out to families, because that is a huge part of what we do, whether it's via email, text, newsletters. We stay in communications with our families, putting savings at the forefront. And we encourage families to save with a bank or credit union, and they can deposit as little as $1 and be eligible for a chance to win. Every month, they get a chance to win from a raffle prize pool ranging from $50 to $1,000. And we have 65 winners a month. 65 families are eligible to win. As long as they made a deposit, they can claim their prize. And we work with various financial institutions that can make account opening easier for families during the pandemic. And we've had like one or two financial institutions that's been really, really great during this pandemic with opening accounts for our families and being able to meet them exactly where they're at, whether it's communicating with them over the phone to establish that account, or account opening via electronic account openings. But they've been very helpful with doing that. And you would think that during a pandemic such as what we're experiencing now, that families would have been rushing to the financial institutions to withdraw the funds. And I'm here to tell you that that has not been our experience. It seems as though these funds that are being saved for the children, it really has an impact on the mental aspect of the parent. And they don't want to touch those funds. It's not what you would call a rainy day fund or emergency fund. So therefore, they're not going to it. And this is what we're seeing. Those funds are untouched and they're still there. And we're so proud of our families for doing that, because we understand that times are really hard, you know. So this is not a backup savings. It was never intended to be a backup savings. And our role is somewhat of a connector for the community. You know, we want to connect the community with the families. And the one thing that we've done to even make that even bigger, we've added on something called the Fund My Future 3-part savings series. And the partners have incentivized their families to participate and complete all sessions. There's 3 sessions to this, and they incentivize the families with a initial startup deposit of $25. And this has really been wonderful during a time of a crisis. So we're really delighted about how our partners are helping our families and vice versa. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Tony, for sharing. And we're so happy that people are still thinking about their future needs while addressing their now needs, right? So that's why the continuum that we laid out, we feel is important, that while you're looking at long-term goals, you're still able to attend to your now and soon needs. Next, we'll have Winona. How have you shifted your programs to meet the now needs of your community, and how is your organization working to meet them?
Thank you, Laura. And it's so great to be here with everyone. I want to say that I'm Financial coaching is one of the ways that we have found is the greatest service that we can do to our communities in helping them. They need a trusted resource to give them guidance and support, especially when they're struggling financially. So we have really put a great emphasis on our financial coaching during this time. We also provide financial literacy classes and other types of classes, reality fairs in the schools, and other types of outreach to make sure everyone knows that we're here for them. We serve 7 counties in northern New Mexico. And also about 25% of the membership of our credit union are immigrant populations. And not only have they been handicapped by not necessarily knowing how to maneuver our financial system, there's an even greater issue because some of them have not been eligible for stimulus payments and unemployment in the past rounds. And so that has made life even more difficult for them. And so we, again, try to be very proactive in our approach. And some products and services that we've had that we feel really meet people where they are a savings plan, such as our Pay Yourself First CD. This is it's called a certificate of deposit, but it would not, if you need it for an emergency, there are no penalties. We just did it this way so that people would not be able to just dip into it without thinking about it. So a portion of each of their loan payments goes into a savings account, and it does have a monetary incentive, and that is that the rate of interest on the loan is the same interest they earn on their savings account. So right now, when most of us are earning 10 basis points on our savings account, they may be earning 4.99 or 10% on their savings account. And if they want to withdraw the funds before maturity, like I said, they do need to talk to a financial coach. If it is deemed an emergency, then they can withdraw it without penalty. And we've been working with Duke University Common Sense Lab to determine the best way to present the benefits of this opportunity to save, because even with that interest rate, that doesn't mean a lot to someone who is LMI and has never really saved in their life. So it's been a great boon for a lot of these people to have this money there now during this time when they were in dire need. We also have other emergency and goal savings accounts that people can set up. We have safe accounts for members that don't have a taxpayer identification number. And we have partnerships with programs that serve the underserved. And I just wanted to give one example of how these programs and these partnerships can really help people. And this isn't totally about savings, but it is one of the pitfalls that people can fall into during this difficult time. And that is that we have a partnership with a program called Grandparents Serving Grandchildren. It's in one of the counties that has a severe drug problem that's in our field of membership. And there's lots of people in this partnership, pro bono attorneys, social service agencies, even law enforcement, and our credit union. And a product that we developed especially to help people in dire need that have already made the mistake of going to a title loan company or a payday loan company is a predatory debt relief loan. And an example for this grandfather, you know, our rate cap in New Mexico, we're way behind the times, is 175%. I know a lot of states have really great lower rate caps than that, but we're at 175%. So a grandfather was raising his granddaughter and he took out a loan to help meet a medical emergency. The loan, they kindly rolled it over for him a couple of times. And by the time that he went to his counselor in this program, he owed $8,554 on a Nissan Maximo, and the interest rate was 130.68 for 4 years. So I'm not sure if many of you can calculate this, because I know I couldn't in my head. His payments were $962 a month with a finance charge of $37,614.63 on a loan of only $8,500. His income was only $1,239 a month, and he still had to pay for rent and food and everything. He was referred to us when we were able to refinance the loan with an affordable payment, non-predatory rate, and it really saved him from making the choice of living in or losing his car because he couldn't pay both his rent and his car. So those are the types of programs that we have. And what we do with this particular loan is we also require a pay yourself first CD so that they will build up emergency savings for the next time that it's needed. We also have some partnerships for children's savings accounts. I won't go into those. And we have had our collection team FICEP certified so that they can also help coach our members. Now for long-term coaching, they go to a full-time coach, but in the collection department, they also are trying to help and not hurt people that fall behind on their payments. We really are also supporting advocacy regarding predatory lending. As I mentioned above, these interest rates in New Mexico are just too high, and so we're advocating now that the legislature opened today for a rate cap of 36%, and we're working with Think New Mexico News and Media and everyone of sharing the impact of how predatory lending really strips wealth from our communities. Because again, as you mentioned, one of the barriers is debt, and this type of debt is a true barrier to savings because the payments are more than they can even afford to start with. Thank you.
Thank you, Winona, for sharing that. And we're so glad to see community-based financial institutions like yourself able to offer products to the most vulnerable communities, especially those left out of the stimulus checks, those who are still struggling because they have not received aid. And overall, this pandemic has forced us to re-examine the way that we are meeting our clients where they are. It's something that I heard from all of you, that you've had to re-examine how to shift your programs, how to change the way you were delivering your services. So that's going to be my next question. How did you really shift your program, especially your internal operations, to meet your clients' changing needs? And we can start off with Winona.
Okay, one thing we did, we had always prided ourselves on doing financial coaching very personally, because Northern New Mexico, highly Hispanic and a highly personal type of communities. But what we did was we learned how to use Zoom, how to do our coaching remotely, how to do our classes electronically. And really, like you said, there's so many new needs, including money to pay basic expenses. I mean, we've had people crying in our drive up because they didn't know how they were going to pay their rent. And we have an extreme amount of people that are unemployed because we have a high reliance on hospitality industry in our area. So some of the new products we developed was a COVID emergency loan, and that loan you could qualify based on your prior employment. And we've been giving extensions on these loans because we've had multiple shutdowns in the restaurant and hospitality industry. And we've also given extensions, and if this is going to put you into negative amortization because of it has a high balance and things of that nature, we've also done some interest forgiveness so that they don't go into negative amortization. And we've helped a lot of people with their mortgages and land loans to avoid foreclosure. In our area, manufactured housing is quite popular, so that's why we do land loans to put this manufactured housing on. We've also added Spanish language on our Spanish language website, a financial coaching online intake, chat services, electronic signatures. We've reallocated staff due to a large volume of incoming calls where you can select whether you want to speak in Spanish or English. We've tried to be very creative in how we've helped those that go through our drive-through. And we also opened some accounts at the request of some local nonprofits so that those that needed to deposit their stimulus checks but didn't have a banking relationship could open an account with us without any fees so that they got the full amount of their stimulus. And we've also really just emphasized our goal savings and pay yourself CDs, but also originally people were calling us, they knew about our financial coaching services, and so they had questions for us, and frontline staff would also refer them. But in the beginning, we were just answering questions about their loans, their income, what happens next type of questions. We would reassure them that we were in this with them and counsel them with good advice, showing them how they could spend less, stay informed, and set priorities. And there was more emphasis on prioritizing needs, helping them just be more conscious of how they were spending their money. I know someone that I know personally was so thrilled with how one of our coaches had helped them cut back on all their television expenses and everything and got that down to almost nothing, and yet she was still happy with everything she could stream. And it's just been different ways to help people. It's also been trying to help them to see that emergency savings is important so that they would use their stimulus check wisely. And so we've been just adapting with these changes to ensure that people can be in as good a place as they can. And another really, where we've emphasized a lot is having a list of all the various resources that they can tap into so that we can give them the number to get utility relief, give them the number to get rent relief, just making sure that we have the information they need. And we also started reviewing our internal reports to find our members in distress so that we could proactively check in with them. We would check and see if they had transactions with predatory lenders. And we would also have our coaches call seniors that they previously met with to make sure they were okay, because there's also been so much corruption. I don't know if that's the right word, but many people trying to use people for their own good during this time with financial scams. And also those utilizing our payday loan alternative and second chance checking accounts who tend to be more vulnerable. We've been calling them and asking them if there's ways that we can help them to try to help them stay out of predatory debt.
Amazing, Winona. And I want to underscore the fact that you guys offer bilingual services. I think that's extremely important considering the population that you're in. And the ability to offer things in your native language is so critical when you're talking about financial terms, because some things just do not translate the same. I also want to applaud you guys for proactively checking your internals and making sure that people are reached out to before they're negatively affected by everything that's going on, right? It feels like sometimes people fall through the holes because we're not able to consistently lift them up and be able to help them out before they even fall. So amazing work. Next, we'll turn to Anne. And Anne, how did you shift your program to meet client changing needs?
Okay, this is Anne. Thanks, everybody. Winona, if every bank and credit union that in the nation could act and be as proactive and responsive to community needs as you guys are, I think we'd be in a different place. So anyway, I love hearing what you've done and what you're continuing to do. So like so many who are probably listening, COVID upended our programs in the middle of a busy 2020 tax filing season, mid-March. So we quickly retooled and pivoted to a hybrid model of virtual tax clinics to Zoom, same. We had to figure out with our volunteers, with our customers, how to use and navigate Zoom. We've become pretty successful at it now. And then with limited drop-off options, of course, for those that don't have digital access. We moved to phone coaching immediately for a financial coaching program, Zoom for our peer coaching sessions, which, how I think the big question has been, how do we maintain the relationships? Everything we did, I should have said before, was in person, at our office, at community locations, in partnership with community. So I think that's been sort of the biggest challenge, is how do you maintain relationships, especially in those coaching relationships over the phone or in Zoom. We began enrolling people in financial products remotely and virtually. And all the while we had to bring along our volunteer workforce and customers to be able to use these new digital and virtual methods. In our tax program specifically, since we're among the only VITA, Volunteer Income Tax Assistance program, that's open year-round in Minnesota, we fielded over 5,000 calls to help people understand and navigate and access that first round of economic impact or stimulus payments. We signed people up for prepaid debit cards and checking accounts to receive those payments in a secure and speedy way. And then in Money Mentors, in our volunteer-based financial coaching program, we threw out our regular peer session curriculum. We usually had monthly curriculum with a topic, but we just early on in the pandemic, we just simply provided space for participants to share, to grieve, to process early on during the pandemic, and continue to do so. Because we're not the experts in managing crises. We don't offer financial relief directly. But they're the experts. We provided space for them to tell each other how to navigate the state's unemployment system, other community supports and other funds that were out there for those that maybe didn't have a Social Security number and didn't get the EIP stimulus payments. And then lastly, in our Fair Financial Inclusion banking program, where we partner with a bank to offer a co-branded set of accounts, we stepped up our advocacy between the customer and our bank partner, Sunrise Banks. And what this took the form of is communicating with them to keep accounts open. For example, if somebody was sitting at a zero balance, and an account could close after 30 days of zero balance. And so, folks would call us and we would be an ombudsman with the bank to keep those accounts open. Or, for example, if somebody was using a credit builder and could no longer make the $30 payment on their credit builder, encouraging them, hey, it's okay to stop making payments. You built credit for, let's say, 6 months. You can get out and you can restart once you're ready. So we really served as that ombudsman between our customers that have our financial products and the bank partner to really make sure those accounts stuck with them through those ups and downs, and particularly the downs that folks were experiencing. And we expect to have to continue shifting our approach and being flexible in the months to come, because folks' refunds are shrinking this year with unemployment being taxable and their earned income tax credit. Like we expect that this nimble approach is going to have to continue through the years to come.
That's right, and I think that's so important to highlight too, just to be able to consistently shift when things change. This pandemic has taken many, many turns since it started, but it's still going to continue at least until we realize what the new normal after the vaccines are very well distributed, right? But let's move on to Tony. Tony, how did you shift your program to meet client changing needs?
Hi, everyone. So the shift that took place with Fund My Future was it was like a two-part shift. In March, our program shifted for immediate needs because we needed to be able to meet the families during a pandemic. And the adjustments that were made for that was we had to make some temporary immediate changes that would keep families engaged. So how do you do that when the banks are closed because of a pandemic, that everything's closed and everything's shut down? So, and then, jobs are closed, shut down, or done. And how do you do that? So what we had to do was we focused on keeping the thought of saving at the forefront. And the way we did that was, instead of having the parents make a deposit, because that's what they did to be eligible for a chance to win, we said, well, why don't you have your child draw a photo of a flower with each petal representing their savings goals? Or why don't you take a picture holding your piggy bank at home and submit that and let that be your deposit? We're going to accept that as your deposit because we wanted to keep the families engaged. We wanted them to not forget about saving, and we also wanted to give them hope during such a time as that was, because no one knew what direction things were going in. So we offered some hope. And then to top it off, we took the time to reach out to our families and to call them, to give them a phone call just to check in on them, because we really understood that these were times unlike any other. And our families appreciated the phone call so much. I've cried with families on the phone, and it was an experience unlike any other. The check-ins were so appreciative, and then it also happened during the time of our annual recognition ceremony, because we love to celebrate our families for committing to saving. That's a big task, and a lot of the families that we're working with are families that never had a savings account in their life, never stepped foot in a bank. So there were many families that I took to the bank myself, and I met them at the bank, and we did it together. It was a we thing. And even during the pandemic, I stressed, this is a we thing. You're not in this by yourself. We're all in this together. And it kind of felt like a family thing. So the annual recognition dinner that was canceled due to the pandemic, we decided to go virtual with that. I didn't even know what it was going to look like, but we took a stab at it, and it was wonderful. We congratulated all of our families for their commitment to saving, and we sent a video, and we posted it, and it was just a way of making families feel hopeful in the midst of a pandemic. And as a result, as I mentioned to you before, families were not going to any financial institutions to withdraw their child's funds. They stood on that hope. And then fast forward to today, the changes that we've made now that are, because those changes were just temporary until the financial institutions opened. And then once they opened and families were able to make deposits, we resumed back to our normal activity. But as of today, we've increased our family participation through our wonderful partnership of the Pennsylvania State Treasury, because in February of 2020, we expanded and became partners with the Pennsylvania State Treasury, making Fund My Future available to all families in Pennsylvania. And then in November, we developed the Fund My Future 3-part saving series, of which I mentioned a little earlier. And I'm going to tell you this, the partners love it. They love it. And the families, they appreciate it. The series consists of 3 components. The first session is all about Fund My Future, where they learn all about Fund My Future. The second session is Introduction to Savings, and that's when I have representatives from the Pennsylvania State Treasury Department there, of financial institutions such as a bank or a credit union, and they're talking to them about their different children's products. And then the third session is Continuing Your Savings Journey, where families would receive information from a financial counselor, whether they want to talk about student loans or purchasing a home or just getting their credit straight. So I have all the information, and then when they're done, they receive a certificate of completion. And then the partners, the community partners would deposit that initial deposit of $25, and they like it because the families are consistently showing up on 3 separate occasions to learn about saving. They love it. The families appreciate it too. Matter of fact, we have one coming up on Thursday. The Carnegie Library is hosting one of our sessions, and we're so excited about it. Like, families in the midst of a pandemic, families still want to save. So we're giving them that opportunity. And now what I'm really excited about is how we've worked with the financial institutions to help families open accounts for their children virtually, which means that a parent could be sitting at home in the comfort of their living room, talking to a representative, opening up a savings account for their child without stepping foot out of the home. That has been very, very powerful in these times. So I'm excited about all the changes that happened because they've all seemed to work out for everyone in this case. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony. I'm just deeply admiring how you guys were able to keep goals of savings goals in mind despite the pandemic, giving people really hope for the future, right? Like that's what we're clinging to. And also your ability to be helpful in community with people, providing aid in a different way. Just being able to be there, especially in such an isolating time, can help families really just continue to feel embraced by the community and supported by the community. Just amazing work overall from all of you. Before we keep going on, I did want to go back to something Winona mentioned, and so we know debt is a big barrier to savings. How are you all preventing troublesome debt during this time?
Yeah,
Oh,
this
Winona,
is
you
Anne. Oh,
sorry.
sorry.
Go ahead,
This is Anne. So a lot of our customers, the majority of our customers come through our doors once a year at tax time, and we have deeper relationships, obviously, with those in our 6 to 12 month coaching program. Luckily, we're not seeing increases in troublesome debt, but we're prepared. We're prepared for, let's just say, so we have volunteers that do have financial conversations at that tax time money moment. We're prepared as we enter this 2021 filing season that our volunteer advocates, they're going to have more balanced due conversations. They're going to be talking to people. We're still, just like Tony is highlighting, we're still having those savings conversations. A lot of families may be in a situation where they want to set aside their refunds into savings, just like they've done in years past. Maybe their refunds will be a little less. Maybe they'll put a little less in savings, but you don't take away the savings opportunity at a time of year when people are getting that large windfall of a tax refund. But we have what I sort of mentioned earlier, we have really strong partnerships with our statewide financial counseling agency called LSS Financial Counseling, and we're ready to send folks their way. They're ready for us to send people their way that with student loan and credit card debt issues. We have a partnership with Exodus Lending, a nonprofit in Minnesota that can get folks out of payday loan debt trap by paying off payday lenders and refinancing that debt into zero interest. So I think it's about shoring up those partnerships when we do see folks that have that troublesome debt walk through our door. So for us, it looks like building and maintaining those strong partnerships. So our customers don't have to find it on their own. They don't have to go to Google and find, scams among the trusted resources. So I think that that's what we're doing right now to prevent that troublesome debt.
Awesome, man. Winona, do you want to go next?
Sure. Oops. Sure. I think that for us, we have seen this impact of predatory lending, and we have had 2 shutdowns of the hospitality industry here to the point where people are really hurting. Tons of people are being laid off. And so we are seeing more activity when we're checking our internal records. And like I said before, we're just trying to call them because there's so many people that are not working and having their hours reduced, and they're turning to this for their immediate needs. And we've also done something we hadn't done with this before, which is we're doing an outreach email to members. Before it had been about maybe our financial coaching or we can help you, but now we're even being more specific. If you need emergency funds, we're here for you, please contact us and we'll help you, because there's a lot of people out there that are really hurting. And we're also trying to grant extensions before people actually fall behind. And like I mentioned earlier, we're stepping up our work for advocacy against these lenders as a priority right now to stop this egregious wealth stripping of the vulnerable. We've also done some target postcard mailings about the services we can provide in this area, hoping to them to come to us first. And we've also been checking on our financial coaching platform. There's a way to do soft pulls on credit so they don't actually hurt the person's credit, obviously, or anything, but we're letting them know that we could maybe lower their rates and payments because their credit scores have increased. And again, we're just doing everything we can to try to get this rate stopped. We have our members doing testimonials, copies of contracts. There's going to be I believe there is an investigative report going on where they're going to highlight this on the media. So hopefully we can get somewhere in this year of stopping some of this really troublesome debt.
Amazing. Let's move on to our last question before we open up to Q&A from the audience. So our last question is, from all your learnings and everything that's happened in the pandemic and how you shifted, how do you see the field using these kinds of flexible saving solutions to help your clients in the future? And we can start off with Tony.
Thank you. So now that our services are being delivered on a virtual platform, such as this one that we're on, like everything's went virtually, pretty much. The ability for families to open accounts remotely will be awesome, because they'll already have all of the information readily available for them in the comfort of their home, and then that will become the new norm. You know, families they won't like forget something at home and not have the right information with them. They will have everything at their fingertips, because that really does work. I'm witnessing it right now. And not only would this be an advantage for financial institutions, but this is also a great opportunity to help the families even more, like help more families to be able to establish savings accounts for their children. Because I feel that now, without families having to go somewhere, schedule an appointment to go somewhere, they can actually take care of their needs right then and there on the spot and get it done and get it out the way. And what I love about that is that that's a one and done thing. Like once they open the savings account, they don't have to open a savings account again. That's it. It's open. All they have to do now is focus on the deposit making, and that's where we come into play. With Fund My Future, they're getting constant reminders, and they love it. They appreciate the reminders because it lets them know, oh, I got to make a deposit of at least $1. And I break it down for my families. I'll say, look, make it a quarter a week. Make it a quarter a week. Put a quarter aside a week, because I know right now times can be real difficult. You know, so I got to say this. We had a winner last month. She won $1,000. We have 4 $1,000 winners. Because in order to be, like I said, we have 65 winners, but in order for them to be eligible to claim the prize, they have to have made a deposit of at least $1. Do you know the one $1,000 winner? She made a deposit of $1. She made a deposit of $1. So I'm doing a story on her, and that will be featured in our newsletter, which is on our website. But I want to say that, you know, being able to do it remotely, opening up accounts for families remotely would be a win-win for everybody. But it will also, here's the big takeaway with this. It will also break down the barrier that sometimes prevent some of the families from stepping foot into a branch in the first place. I have, like I said, I've accompanied many of my families to financial institutions, because if that's all I needed to do to help you to open up an account, come on, we're going to do this together. We're going to go in there, because I don't want you to feel intimidated about anything, nothing. We're going to go in and we're going to do it, and we're going to overcome that obstacle, and you're going to get that account open for your child, and you're going to start saving for your child. And do you know how many hugs I've received? Countless hugs from families going in and overcoming something just as simple as that. Some people take it for granted, but I understand, you know, and they take it and they open the account and they're so happy. So that's the one thing I see, though, that would be the takeaway, is just making it convenient with that virtual account opening. Thank you.
Amazing, Tony. It's literally meeting people where they are. That's just like the epitome of it. Next we have Winona, sorry.
Thank you. Well, we're going to just continue the programs that we already have, and also just emphasizing again this emergency savings. Right now, we're working on a program for auto purchasing through Duke University Common Sense Lab, and it's not really for the purchasing. What it does is it helps, it's a program where they can put in the car that they're buying, and they can get information on how much it's going to cost to operate that car, to repair that car, and so they can really learn the true cost of owning that next car. It's kind of like the first time home buyers program do for people that are going to buy a house. But what we really liked about this is a lot of times people end up walking away from their car because they give up because they really couldn't afford it. And so this is a way of ensuring they know what they're getting into. And especially if their income ever gets very tight, they would have money saved because it's coupled with a savings to cover those extra costs that aren't in the car payment. So that's one of the things that we're working on going forward.
Awesome. Thank you. And last but certainly not least, Anne.
Yeah, I mean, yes, I echo all of what has been said by my fellow panelists. And when I think about the field and flexible savings solutions, I think about savings programs and the funders that support us. I think about this like pivot, this need to pivot, how do we celebrate and evaluate those withdrawals as much as we celebrate deposits for building savings? We've seen in our financial coaching program, people are withdrawing and using those savings for what they're intended for, emergencies. Like what if somebody is using their emergency savings to prevent that harmful debt, to prevent having to take out a payday loan? What does it look like if we flip incentives on their head, and once somebody uses their savings for one of those like milestone emergencies, how do we celebrate and incentivize building that back up? Because so much of I think of our funders and our outcomes that we're reporting on are X number of people will save X amount of dollars. And we're evaluated on that. We're evaluated on that even in a pandemic. What does it look like? That's just not the whole story. What does it look like to celebrate folks who are withdrawing their savings for the intended purpose of emergencies? So it's just that's one thing I've been thinking about in thinking about this question. Another thing is savings programs and products, they need to have like a liquidity option or release valve in the event of emergencies or crisis, just like Winona was talking about in her CD. Like too many of those financial products that are out there that earn competitive interest, they have the punishments like tax consequences, loss of principal or interest when used to access or draw down. So on a product side, this looks like as little as no minimum balance requirements and keeping up, like allowing accounts to stay open at zero balance for a while. But it also means what does it look like to be able to generally, like Winona, you talked about your CD program, to design solutions that are liquid in the event of emergency that earn that interest like a CD, but have a stickiness, because our customers ask all the time about stickiness, about talking to that financial coach to draw down savings, sort of having that conversation, or as simple as no ATM card linked to it. So I really like that, designing solutions that have a liquidity valve, release valve for emergencies, but without the punishment, but with this that stickiness of a financial coach, somebody evaluating their budget before withdrawing money. So those are just some ideas that come to mind in this question.
Incredible. I love how you guys have brought your learnings to the forefront. This pandemic has taught us so much, and we're still learning more as we continue. Next, we'll go to Q&A from the audience, and we have a couple of questions that have already been submitted. So I'll just say them out loud, and if you want to jump in, feel free to start. The first question is, clients receiving SSSI or other government subsidies are limited to how much they can save. How would one advise these clients on how to build an emergency fund or a fund for a vacation? What options are available for these clients?
This is Anne. I mean, this is hard. I was just looking through some of our financial coaching monthly reports, and we had somebody, that has limited savings, can only save so much because of, their healthcare, their state healthcare insurance. And so, like, in some respects, some of this, like, I will say a lot of our folks, in Minnesota, asset limits have been lifted for certain programs, public programs. And so, like, letting folks know there's no asset limits on those programs. But in some of this, like, honestly, like, it's policy change, particularly, as you mentioned, with SSDI. And so I think that is and continues to be a real frustrating challenge that works against the emergency savings message.
Agreed. Anybody else before we move on to the next question? Great. The second question we have from the audience is, how do you share information such as utility relief, rent relief with your members or clients? Do you do it via Facebook or blog post or social media, or is there another method?
Well, this is Winona. We do it with our Facebook page, and we also do it through emails to our members. Those are the main ways that we communicate.
Great. Anne or Tony?
Yeah, this is Anne with Prepare and Prosper. So we ended up creating a resource page that we were creating and updating that was on our website. We ended up retooling our website to have a COVID page. And also, again, we collect customers' emails, and they opt in for text messaging, as well as social media. And so we will, especially if it's, for example, our city of St. Paul had a bridge fund, an emergency fund early on in COVID, and we'll do our best to customize to our list about that. So we'll filter for our St. Paul customers to be able to share that information. So honestly, it has to take that sort of multi-channel hit to be able to reach people. And so we try to cross all of those channels as well.
Awesome.
This is
great. Oh yeah, go ahead, Tony.
Okay. So with Fund My Future, our communication is done via email. That is how every family joins the program. They would take the PA Savings Pledge, receive an email confirmation, and then from there on out, that is how we communicate with all of our families. Of course, we'll reach out to them via phone. Whenever someone's a winner, if somebody wins $1,000, they'll get a phone call from yours truly. The newsletters are sent electronically. The raffle tickets, which go out on the first of every month, they're sent electronically. All of our communications with the families are done via email, and in some cases, we will correspond with someone via mail. Of course, if they were to receive a check, we'll put that in the mail. The other way that we communicate with families is also on our social media platform. On Facebook, we post a lot of stuff on Facebook, including winners, and that's it. Thank you.
Awesome. And we have another question. How do we advocate for credit unions in our area to be as proactive as, I'm guessing, the Guadalupe Credit Union in this case?
Well, first of all, we're a community development financial institution as well as a credit union, so we have a real commitment to this. I would say, first of all, if you actually wanted to contact me, you could do so, and I could try to find out what credit unions in your area might be looking at being a CDFI or are a CDFI. And otherwise, I would be happy to talk to them about our journey along this line. It started in 2000. And so for the last 20 years, we've been working on becoming more and more proactive and more focused on the underserved. So I'd be happy to talk to you offline about it, because it's hard when it's clear across the United States. I'm not quite sure where you're from. So.
Okay, perfect. We'll share that contact information shortly so that they can reach out to you.
Okay.
One last question. Did you have to change the way your staff works due to COVID? Like, are you changing your metrics, the way they, like the times that they work, the location, etc.? Like, we know we're all virtual, but did anything else change with the way your staff operates?
Since my mic's still on, I was just going to say, for us, it's not quite that easy because we are not remote because of the fact that people want access to their money, of course. And so we are not remote. And so it's just been a whirlwind of putting up plastic barriers, of questions when people want to come in and at times not letting people come in and things like that. So it's just been a very interesting time for us. So I'll let someone else.
Yeah, this is Anne. I mean, I think I want to say an added layer to this is that our workforce for the free tax and our financial coaching program, they're volunteers. And so that like totally changes. And a lot of our volunteers are working remotely and are, have a level, many have a level of privilege where they've been working remotely since the beginning of this pandemic. And so, yes, our staff, like our core staff, we're size about 21 to 23. We ended up, and we did not have the technology, I will say, we had some like VPN in, but like not everybody, people had desktops. And so we totally had to retool to be able to support people to work remotely. And we do allow like folks that are in the office because they're more productive in the office. There's less distraction. The technology is easier. Like we allowed for that sort of in-office option and built a schedule for those who preferred in office. And I'll just say, this continues to be, we're all working over Teams now. Teams is our new hallway, Microsoft Teams. And so, yeah, things totally changed for our staff. And, we were lucky to have an amazing operations team. But that was a challenge. And I will own that's a challenge. And if there's anyone that wants to talk through any of that, reach out and I'd be happy to. So, yeah, we ended up having to retool and completely go from home. And it took a while and it still takes time.
Yeah. I feel like everybody has also gone through this progression of like, how do we shift everything and keep it going, right? The sustainability part is also a huge component of it. I think we have another question for Tony. The participant that won $1,000, was that for family use or added to the child savings account?
Whenever you win the $1,000, the parent or the adult, it has to be an adult, guardian, parent, grandma, aunt, uncle, they have to provide proof that a deposit was made. And the only type of proof that we will accept is a copy of the statement. And on that statement must include the child's name. We have to see the child's name on there. The adult's name as well, their physical address, because they have to be a Pennsylvania resident. And then what we're looking for is a deposit within the winning month. And as long as we see a deposit into that account and no withdrawal, that person is a winner. It's been verified as a winning ticket. And then they will have to, in addition to that, they also have to complete a survey. And then they will receive a check for $500. And then the other $500 goes to the child's account with the Pennsylvania Treasury Department, where a 529 is then created for the child. And those funds will be there and sit there until the child graduates from high school, and they can use that money for college or trade school, any type of education expenses. So that's it.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I think we don't have any more questions coming in now, and it's almost time, so I'll start wrapping up. I want to thank all three of you for joining us on today's panel. We're so grateful for your insights, so grateful for you to be able to join us and share everything. And I think the big takeaway from everything you all have shared is the pandemic has really forced us to meet people where they are. And that means anything from people who are not saving right now because they're just trying to get by, they're just trying to maintain their financial stability and not fall completely off the cliff, to people who are really saving and are looking towards their future, are so excited about saving for their future. Something that I thought was super interesting is just how you guys have been able to shift so rapidly your programs, or not even rapidly, but so dedicated to how your clients work, how they operate, including offering bilingual services or being able to just join them on calls, join them at the bank. That shows us that your clients come first and you are able to advocate for your clients. I think all this has proven that now needs are very susceptible to emergencies, to changes in the environment, but also can be a great facilitation for building up that savings and being able to help build confidence in people, helps them build up their savings. I want to thank you guys all one more time, and a round of applause for you guys, because you guys are extremely amazing. And we'll move on to the next steps and wrap up. So we have an exciting adventure planned for you all. If you guys want to join us for our virtual roundtables, our applications will actually be opening tomorrow. These savings virtual roundtables will be a chance to go in depth on savings topics with other practitioners and others in the savings field. We'll send this out via the Savings Network listserv tomorrow, so look out for that and more information coming shortly to our social media. And next step, the series continues. Come back Tuesday, February 2nd. Visit our advocacy center to stay up to date with our advocacy efforts. Please complete the post-webinar survey and sign up for our other networks and campaigns to stay in the know about the issues you care about. Let us know your suggestions for future calls as well. Plug into the Prosperity Now community. While this is the Savings Network, we do have other networks that are super great, including the Financial Coaching Network and the Racial Wealth Equity Network, as well as the Health and Wealth Network. Join other communities. Take action at the Prosperity Now Advocacy Center. Make your voice heard by calling, emailing, tweeting, or scheduling a visit with your member of Congress. We hope to see you online again. Thank you again for joining today's discussion. Be well, stay safe, and be sure to keep your distance. Thank you, everybody.